surface, yes, yes. That's quite interesting, maybe too. Yeah.
Is that that's the two ways of going when you're doing the archaeological excavations? Either you work with trenches
Yeah.
that you go down deep and you get like a strip of information, or you remove.
Welcome to our recordings of the first practical workshop for the Craft Skills for Garden Conservation project. This is an Erasmus-funded scheme to build skills and expertise in garden conservation throughout Europe. We begin at the beginning of all horticultural endeavours with the soil, what it can tell us about the garden in the past, how it was looked after in those days, and how best to manage it sustainably for the future. Our first workshop is hosted in Norway by one of the original instigators of the project, Vea College of Horticulture. Ingeborg Sorheim, lecturer in garden history, explained to us how the college developed and how the case study of the restoration of the 1920s flower border fitted into the bigger picture. It was transformed from a traditional farm into a women's garden school in 1923 when the fashion for arts and crafts gardens was beginning to take off in Scandinavia. This beautiful drawing was made by Olaf Leiv Moyn, the first teacher in garden art, as landscape gardening was called in those days, at the Norwegian Agricultural University, where all the teachers at Vea were educated. Sadly, much of his plan was never actually realised, a recurring theme, as first fire and then war threatened the college's ambitions. But certainly the long border running alongside the stone wall was constructed, as well as an elaborate parterre in the centre of the garden, once known as one of the best flower gardens in this part of Norway. As war forced all land back into production, this area became a tobacco field during the war, grown partly for pesticide use. It then went through various incarnations as shown by further maps and aerial photographs, before ending up as the college volleyball court in the 1990s. So what can the soil actually tell us about a garden's use in the past? Landscape architect Britt Angle-Johnson explained to us the role archaeology has to play. She demonstrated the two main different techniques of archaeological excavation: vertical, to read the layers of history descending down into the earth, and horizontal, to search for the patterns of difference which would hopefully reveal the edges of the historic bed and the gravel walk. As the participants divided into teams to try to discover the secrets lying under the turf, there was much discussion about the destructive nature of this type of work. Technologies such as geophysics and LiDAR have been invented to be much less invasive and so are definitely recommended for more sensitive sites. However, one team struck lucky quite early on. After scraping away carefully with trowels using the horizontal technique, the gravel path soon became visible at 2 meters 20 from the stone wall. This was recorded carefully, notes taken and compared with the evidence we had on paper of the dimensions of the path. Buckets were used to save samples of soil to be sent away for analysis. Specialist laboratories can discover the types of plants grown from pollen remains and other microscopic debris, particularly useful in ancient sites where there may be no documentary evidence. Another line of inquiry was to verify the position of the old trees that were marked on the map and indeed appeared in the aerial photographs. One tree made itself known at the very early stages of excavation when the turf was being removed. Samples of the woody root remains were taken away to see whether the variety was indeed a columnar poplar as indicated on the plan and why it might have died in the first place. Spraying water on the dry soil is often helpful in revealing changes of texture and soil type. One team had the job of locating the central path that led to the formal parterre. Again, gravel was found quite quickly and identified as man-made by our resident stonemason, possibly even the chippings produced when shaping the dressed stone for the retaining wall behind the border. The trench revealed just how shallow the footpath was. Compared with our horticultural forebears of the 18th century, 19th and 20th century path construction was really quite slapdash, often only a few centimetres deep and not of any skilled construction. The debate then ensued as to whether this garden should too be restored, but it was agreed that the long 2-metre wide border would be quite enough for college resources right now. So the excavations were filled in and turf returned so that we could all concentrate on the next part of the process.